Hello, hello everyone. Welcome to the May Brown What Makes a Great Trainee Solicitor webinar. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you can all hear me. So the idea for the next hours, I'll quickly give a brief overview of the firm, although I'm sure you all know lots about us already, and then I'll hand over to our lovely trainees that have joined us, and they'll introduce themselves and give some tips and advice, and um, then we'll open the floor to questions. And I believe there's the question box there, and we'll pick them up from there. So yeah, the idea is, we don't want to talk too much. We just want to, answer as many questions as you may have, because I'm sure you have loads. So just to give a brief introduction to myself, I'm Serena Dawson. I'm the Graduate Recruitment and Development Coordinator at Mayor Brown. So that just basically means that I look after our vacation schemes and training contracts and our solicitor apprenticeship program. So should you apply to one of those schemes, you'll come across me. I'll be part of the whole recruitment process. And then once you join, if successful, I'll be helping you through the scheme or the training contract up until qualification. So with regards to a bit of background on the firm, again, I won't bore you, but obviously Mayor Brown is an international law firm. We're obviously speaking from the London office, which is based in the city by Liverpool Street. Um, as I said, we're international. We have 26 office locations, covering obviously America, which is where we're founded, but obviously also Asia, the rest of Europe, um, and Brazil, and parts of South America as well. So that just gives you an idea of the scope of the work, and the jurisdictions we cover. Obviously, we do a lot of cross-jurisdiction work, and we have kind of our main core practice areas are finance, corporate, um, litigation, and real estate. I would say those are our biggest, especially in the London office. But obviously, we have global clients and we have other smaller practice areas like employment, pensions, tax, and so on. So hopefully that again gives you a brief overview of the firm. But I'll hand over now to our trainees, who will kind of go through, what do we look for in a trainee solicitor? What skills and qualities um, do we look for, and what kind of system in their role now, and their journey so far into law as well. So Kirsty, I think you're gonna kick us off, so I'll hand over to you. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Serena. Hi, everyone. My name's Kirsty. I'm in my first seat at Mayor Brown, so I'm sitting in the finance department at the moment. I'll just give you a brief overview of my journey into law. So I did my undergraduate LLB at the University of Glasgow. And then following that, I did the GDL, but only a few courses in the GDL because I already had a Scottish law degree. And then after that, I did the LPC and then joined Mayor Brown immediately after that. So I wanted to go into law because, well, firstly, I tried out finance internships because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into law or finance. And I thought working for a commercial firm like Mayor Brown would be a nice hybrid of the two. So that was something that drew me to Mayor Brown, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to join finance in my first seat. So yeah, in terms of the seats, I'm hoping to go into litigation next just to get a good contrast between that and finance. But at Mayor Brown, you do one transactional seat, you do one litigious seat. You can also do one client secondment or international secondment, and then your last seat is usually one of your choice. So the skills I think have helped me so far sitting in finance, I'd say the main one is organizational ability. So finance is, well, it is legal in its nature. It's a lot of project management. There's usually a lot of documents flying around. You have to keep on track of those. Things like conditions precedent checklists are a big trainee responsibility. Also, something that's more legal in its nature is drafting legal opinions, maybe helping with security documents, things like that. I would say as a trainee, you're most helpful to your seniors by, for example, them asking you what's the status of something, where is this at any given point, being the point of contact for local counsel. So, for example, today's a good testament to that. I have later today calls with, I think, 8 different jurisdictions across Europe. So it'll be speaking to Austria in an hour, and then later today it'll be like Romania. So it's very varied, and I think that's something that I really enjoy about Mayor Brown is like the kind of variety of work. So I've been able to get involved in things like funds deals, emerging markets deals, some derivatives work. So you can really make the training contract your own and kind of guide it in a direction that you want. But yeah, I'd say the main skills are organizational ability. Communication is a big one. So, for example, if you know that you can't get a task done because your capacity is too stretched, just communicating that to the people that you work with. If there's any periods of unavailability, just letting them know. And yeah, just offering to help where you can. But obviously, people understand, especially at a firm like Mayor Brown, everybody is very understanding that you are new. For me, this is the first time I kind of like had any real legal experience. I didn't paralegal before or anything like that. So everyone's been really good about that. And yeah, I think that's all I had to say.
Thanks, Kirsty. I know you have to run off soon to kind of do some of that work you just mentioned.
Yes, we'll be
So she
departing.
won't be here for the Q&A. But if you do have any questions directly for Kirsty, I can pass them on to her, and we can answer those via email at a later date. So thanks for that.
Great, thanks, Trina.
I guess I'll hand over to Kyle, as he's also first seat trainee.
Yeah, hi, I'm Starvin Evans, first seat trainee in finance. So share Kirsty's sentiment of having to hurry off to hold some CP calls and what have you. My journey to law is I graduated from Oxford Brookes in 2018, and then had a year off and I worked in-house for Iceland Foods, which was a really good experience, because when you come into a department like finance, or I suppose any department, you realize what clients want, which is often just answers very quickly, and your partner will want a more detailed answer. So that was a good experience to start off with. But I applied to Mayor Brown through the Aspiring Solicitors Commercial Awareness Competition, which I got through to the final. I didn't win, but made some contacts there, and I think just made an impression. Went through the normal route of the assessment centre, and yeah, vacation scheme. I sat in finance and in corporate, which is where I wanted to sit, and they were both different but very interesting departments to sit in. And I was very lucky that I had a partner called Ash McDermott, who I work a lot with now in finance. On the first day of my seat in finance, he came up to me after having been on holiday for 2 weeks and just sat down with me, had a really good chat for about an hour and a half about his work that he did, his story, his background, and it just made me feel really comfortable on the vacation scheme. And that was one of the key reasons why I picked Mayor Brown, was because of the friendliness of all the people. And even today, although not everyone's in the office, a lot of the partners are in the office, presumably because they want to get out of the house. And they're always up for a good chat. Like, a lot of them will come into the office and just say, how are you doing? How's your weekend? And that's really nice that you've got really highly experienced partners who will mentor you and guide you through the work, alongside a really strong team of associates and senior associates. But they're also up for a good chat, which I think is important when you're spending a long time in the office. So yeah, that's my story to Mayor Brown. I'm currently sat in finance. I do a lot of emerging markets work, export finance. That's what I'm interested in, and the beauty of the finance department at Mayor Brown, not that I'm trying to sell it to you, but I suppose I am. But the beauty of the department is that we don't have strict sub-departments. So we've got very strong funds teams, leverage finance teams, real estate finance. But because you just sit under the finance team, you're able to sort of pick out people and the type of work that you like doing and have your own route towards that. So, and in terms of skills and qualities, completely share Kirsty's sentiment on organisation. I'd probably put some consideration on communication skills and the importance of building relationships as well, just so that it's really easy if you're struggling for capacity to let them know what's going on, etc. But yeah, happy to field any questions after.
Thanks, Kyle. I'll hand over to Nina now. She's one of our current third seaters.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm Nina. So I'm in my third seat. My journey to law was I studied history and Russian at university. I went on a year abroad to Russia. I spent 11 months of that studying at a university in Siberia, and then I spent a month interning at a magic circle firm in Moscow. After university, I hadn't secured a training contract. I went and did the GDL, and it was during that year that I made my applications. Was lucky enough to get onto the Mayor Brown summer vacation scheme and just had a really great 2 weeks. You know, you really can tell a lot about a firm from going and spending a bit of time there and listening to people talk about the firm. And it was so evident that it was such a friendly, supportive firm. And I was really hopeful that I'd get a training contract, and thankfully I did. So I then had to do the LPC before I started, but I had another year that I had to fill. And while I was applying for paralegal roles, the graduate recruitment team at Mayor Brown at that point got in touch with me and said there were openings at Société Générale, the French bank. So I interviewed there and spent 11 months working in their trade finance and commodities team. Then went on to the LPC and then started in finance. And yeah, completely echo what's been said about finance as a first seat. I then moved into commercial dispute resolution for my second seat, and I've stayed in litigation, moving into insurance litigation for my third seat. The work, I'll speak about the work in litigation because I think, I don't really have anything to add for finance, very coherently described. So litigation, I'd say your main tasks are legal research, which is where I think my history aspect of my degree came in useful. But I do think, if I'd done a law degree, I'd probably be, a lot better at legal research. And you'll also be asked to draft letters to the other side. And yeah, you'll be asked to attend calls. You write a lot of attendance notes during your time in litigation, which can vary from, a 15-minute call to a 5-hour-long witness interview. So yeah, ability to stay awake online is very much needed. In terms of what other skills I think you need, you definitely need good attention to detail. A lot of the time you'll be the final call before a letter goes over to the other side, if it's litigation, or before, a legal opinion goes off to counsel. And in terms of attention to detail, it's not that you're spotting errors in the law. You're literally spotting if a comma's in the wrong place, if there's a spelling mistake, that the right law firm has been put in the document. It can be as simple as that. You definitely need to be a team player. A lot of the time, your fellow team members will be really busy and you'll be expected to kind of chip in to help out. It might be that in litigation, there's a massive disclosure exercise on a matter that you're not staffed on, and you'll kind of, be expected to help people out by jumping on and kind of doing whatever you can within, your own capacity. And then I'd say the final quality, you just need to be quite a friendly and approachable person. Mayor Brown pride themselves on having an open door policy. And, it's so important that kind of, if you're expecting partners and senior lawyers to have that kind of attribute that as a junior within the team, that you kind of carry those qualities as well. I think that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Nina. So I'll now hand over to Hormus, who's another third seat trainee.
Thanks, Rina. So my journey to law actually has little bits of Cal, little bits of Nina. So I did international relations for my undergraduate degree, then did the GDO and LPC, and actually came to Mayor Brown through the Aspiring Solicitors Commercial Awareness Competition. Like Cal, I didn't win, but that's where I sort of got in touch with Mayor Brown and made some contacts and got a feel for the firm. And I think the semi-finals were hosted at the firm's offices, and that's where I got to meet some people and got a really good impression when was one of the partners in the construction litigation team who was carrying this big stack of papers and he was late for a meeting, but he still took the time to give me really like detailed feedback on the presentation that me and my team had just done. And I thought, you know what, if I'm in a place with someone that senior and that busy is going to take the time to just give his advice to a random student that's just coming off the street, then that's the sort of place that I want to work. And that impression was completely accurate, and it's held true all the way through my training contract so far. So after that, I did a bit of traveling, less productive than Nina. I was just visiting places and a bit of a long holiday. And then I actually joined Nina at Societe Generale in the financial services regulation team for about a year and a half, and then moved straight into Mayor Brown into their litigation team, specifically the insurance litigation team. Then I went to real estate, did a little secondment to one of our clients, British Land, and then now I'm back in our commercial dispute resolution team, which again is part of the broader litigation team. I think Nina's covered a lot of the trainee tasks that litigation trainees do, and the real estate tasks honestly are quite similar to what Cal and Kirsty described in finance. I'd say one of the big skills that I've had to learn over the past year and a half that you might not have had to deal with before coming into a training contract is delegating. So often as a trainee, you'll have to delegate both sort of to support staff, but then upwards to associates and partners as well, because you'll be in charge of running action lists and knowing where different tasks are, particularly on like long running litigation. It might be that it's going on for 2 years and that task list is passed from trainee to trainee, and it's your job at the start of every week or the end of every week to check where things are at, what deadlines might be coming up for the next week, and make sure that everyone's aware of what things need to be done. Because partners and associates might be quite deep in one particular matter or dealing with one particular aspect of a trial, but you need to be aware of everything at a very high level. And like I think it was Kirsty said before, the partners will just pop to you and say, hey, Holmes, what's going on with this thing? And it might be something that someone else is responsible for, but you need to know where everyone's at with it. And that's something that, I hadn't really had to deal with before coming to Mayor Brown. And it's something that you get given training on, and the other trainees and associates are always really helpful to give advice on as well, on that and pretty much everything. But other than that, I just echo everything that the others have said, and happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Holmes. So now is the time that we want to hand over to you, all listening, and give you the opportunity to ask the trainees or myself any questions you may have about the training contract, vacation schemes, what it's like to work at Mayor Brown in particular, the recruitment process, literally anything at all. So do please pop those in, and we'll pick them up. But I think maybe just to Okay, I'll come on to your question in a second. Saskia, I think you were first, but I was just going to ask the trainees, what skill do you think you found the most challenging to develop? What did you struggle with? And what aspect of the training contract have you struggled with the most? And then now, hopefully, through the other end. Does anyone want to pick that up?
I can offer something up. I think, you come through university and any other jobs you do, and you want to be a perfectionist, and then you get the training contract. And sometimes you actually have to say, no, I can't do that. It might be because you've got too much work on, or it's out of your kind of capacity and your ability. And getting I'd say it's courage really to say, I'm not sure on this, or I can't do that today. I could do it tomorrow. Is probably the biggest skill that I've had to learn and improve over the 3 seats.
Yeah, thanks, Nina. I think, the idea is trainees think they should always say yes, and it's kind of learning how to say no and manage your time effectively. I think that's really important. Obviously, the workload is high, so you can't always say yes. So thanks for that, Nina. So Saskia, you were first. You've asked, how can I make my application for a VAC scheme or training contract stand out? So I'll hand over to the trainees. Perhaps advice and tips as to what you feel you did that helped you stand out.
I think the most important thing, and we've done quite a few of these webinars and seminars over the last year and a half, and I always say is you've got to make your application specific. And because Serena and the rest of the team are going to read hundreds of applications, and there's no point writing what you think we want to hear. What you need to write is, how you and the firm are a really good fit. And the really important part of that is you. So if you're writing something in your application and you read it and you think, actually, that could apply to just anyone, think about how you can make that more specific to yourself. And that might be, a particular skill that we've discussed here, like organizational skills. Use experiences that you've had to demonstrate that, rather than just saying, I am organized or I have organizational skills. Say, well, I was working at X, or I was volunteering here, or things like that. And I guess the other way, sort of prerequisite for that is go out and do stuff. So, volunteer, get work experience, and do interesting things. And it doesn't have to just be in law. It can be in things that you're genuinely passionate about. And the more passionate you are about it, and when it comes to interview, if you can really talk about it at length, that's probably a good sign as well.
Yeah, thanks, Hormus. So we've got quite a few coming. So I'll move on to the next question from Oscar, which is what makes May Brown's training stand out. So I guess that's kind of what makes our training contract really good and what makes our training good. So someone wants to pick that one up.
Yeah,
Kyle,
happy to do that if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry about my connection. It's normally fine, but office Wi-Fi. The training was a big thing for me because although I'd studied corporate finance and corporate insolvency, it's completely different to doing it in practice. And you'll all know that Mayor Brown is renowned for their training. And when you come here, you'll see why, because I can only speak for finance, but there's a particularly comprehensive range of training sessions, from specific tasks that you'll have to do as a trainee, like drafting legal opinions or doing CP checklists, up to the more broad overview of derivatives and what does that mean. And Ed Parker, he's head of global derivatives for Mayor Brown, he does a really good session on derivatives. He wrote a book and did a video about the history of derivatives and how they come about, which I can recommend you watch on YouTube. It's quite funny. But yeah, so I can speak for finance and just say that there's a massive range of training that you'll have to do as a trainee. And that really helps when you come to practice, because you already have an understanding of, if not how to do the task, the sort of background law and what goes on behind that. So it's essential that you have good training as a trainee.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, I think you highlighted that we are known for our training, and that's because we have a really great learning and development team that look after the trainees doing the training contract and make sure that everything they need to know that would assist them in each of their seats they know before kind of starting in the roles. And throughout, obviously, you have kind of more general training on different skills and qualities that are useful for trainee solicitors to develop as well. So it's really extensive. So Hermione, you've asked, would you have advice for non-law students? So I guess, yeah, any specific advice for applying to May Brown, or I guess any firm, for non-law students?
Yeah, so I guess if you're still at university, I would say make sure you join your university law society. Don't feel that you can't join that just because you're in a non-law degree. And if you've left university and you're applying with a non-law degree, just really think about how that's going to help you as a trainee solicitor. So I obviously spoke about doing history and Russian, so I could talk about having a language, working at an international firm. History, you develop research skills that come in handy at work. But, there's so many degrees out there, and all of them will have individual characteristics that you can apply to a training contract. I had friends that did things like biochemistry and then were looking at firms that were strong in, life sciences, IP, because that's what they were interested in. So yeah, just really kind of think about how you can explain why your non-law subject is going to help you as a trainee solicitor. And I can guarantee that you'll have attributes through that degree that, other people won't have through their degrees. So definitely, yeah, just make the most of it.
Yeah, thanks, Nina. Just to add, yeah, there's no disadvantage to applying as a non-law student. We take on obviously non-law and law grads, and a lot of our partners and so on haven't studied law, and ultimately you do the LPC, which will then be it was the GDL LPC, which is now turning to the SQE. You've done that before starting anyway, so you will have that background knowledge even before joining us, which I think really helps as well. So Anna, you've asked, do you have any advice for vacation scheme applicants who have not attended law school yet? So just to quickly kind of answer this, like I said, not an issue at all, and kind of touches on what Nina just said. You're looking at what your experience thus far, i.e. non-law experience, has given you, what transferable skills you've gained from that. Focus on that, and then how that translates into a career in law, and go from there. So we're not looking for people that have had law experience. That's not a requirement. Obviously, it gives you something to talk about at interview, but equally you can talk about your non-law work experience and the skills you've gained. So don't worry if you don't have any law experience, especially over the last few years. Obviously, during COVID, it's difficult to get any kind of substantial in-person work experience, but focus more on maybe the other stuff you've done, so part-time jobs, extracurricular activities, obviously societies or sports teams at university, volunteering, charity work, etc., and go from there. So we'll move on to the next question from Ashley. She's asked, which seat has been your favorite one so far? So almost Nina, I think that applies to you too.
I guess we can both answer for our own opinions, but for me, it's been the current one, commercial dispute resolution. I think I really enjoyed my first litigation seat, which was in the insurance team, but the work in the commercial dispute resolution team is a bit more varied. It's less industry specific. So, and I've also been able to go to an actual trial in court, which was extremely exciting and not as common as you'd think. I think my supervisor, who's been a partner for about 10 years now, said in his entire career he's seen 4 cases go to trial. So I was extremely lucky to get that experience. And I just enjoy the pace of the work, the sort of, and you know, I enjoy the excitement of sort of being up at 12 o'clock trying to get a settlement agreement across the table, things like that. I've got a mediation coming up in 2 weeks that should be very interesting. And I think it's all about the characters in litigation. There's always, people, and you're having to manage different characteristics and different types of personalities. And I think it's very sort of human oriented part of law, which is what I enjoy.
I find these questions really difficult to answer because I am so bad at making decisions. I think that's why I did a combined degree as well. On the whole, I think I've enjoyed my 2 litigation seats in terms of content the most, but I think I'm better at transactional work. So I think that might have been my favorite just because I thought I was better at it. But like Horma said, the characters you get to see in litigation and kind of the letters that can come out of nowhere saying, crazy things are just, it's a really good seat to do. And I'm glad I've got to do 2 in it.
Great. Thanks for that, Hormus and Nina. So Anna, we'll move on to your question. You said the website doesn't specify the exact dates for the spring vac scheme. Can I specify? So I was literally talking about the spring vacation scheme today. So the reason why it doesn't specify is because we're not 100% sure if we are going to run it, and instead are looking at running 2 slightly larger summer vacation schemes. So the main reason for that is around COVID, and basically as part of the vaccines, as you may know, we usually do a trip to Paris on the last day, and we'd like to do that, and we wouldn't like the idea of summer vacation scheme participants having that experience and our spring vacation scheme participants not having that experience. So it's somewhat up in the air. We'll have confirmed by the end of this month. So if you have applied for us, we'll be sending emails out to let people know either way. But hopefully that answers your question. So Roberta, you've asked, if I'm not doing law for my undergraduate degree, how early should I be applying for vacation schemes? Again, I'll pick this one up. So if you're doing a non-law degree, you can apply in your final year for a vacation scheme. And it's slightly different for law degree applicants who can apply in their penultimate year at the earliest. So hopefully that answers your question. Bernice, you've asked, how is Mayer Brown different from other law firms in your opinion, apart from culture? Great question. So Nina Holmes, I'll hand over to you.
So I'll start from a training perspective. I think what's great about the training contract at Mayer Brown is that, as Carl was speaking about within finance, you're not tied to a subgroup. You can get experience across the range of financial products and areas that we practice. And that's the same kind of across the board in any team like that. So corporate, you're not tied to private equity, for example. You can do all the corporate work while you're in that seat. Within litigation, you go in as a trainee in either kind of insurance, construction, or commercial dispute resolution. But while you're in litigation, you can work on any kind of case in any of the three. And if employment are looking for trainees to help out, you can also help there. So you're just kind of getting this broad range of experience even during your seat, which is broad already. And a lot of firms won't offer that. If you're doing finance at a different firm, you'll be in the project finance team. And that's all the experience you'll get within that finance seat. I think we also are just, when you're working with our offices in different countries, it doesn't feel like you're contacting a different firm, which I think it can feel at some firms that kind of have, maybe spread out a bit more or just don't have the kind of joined upness that Mayer Brown has. And even when you're working with law firms that aren't part of Mayer Brown, but we have a really good relationship with, it just all feels really smooth. So yeah, that would be my experience of how it's different. I assume Hormus probably has more to add.
Yeah, again, from a training perspective, I think this is quite unique in the city anyway, is that we have a client secondment and you're pretty much guaranteed to go on it if you want it. And for me, even having done a lot of in-house experience before joining Mayer Brown, it's really helpful to see what the client wants from their external lawyers when you go back into private practice. It definitely changed the way that I draft communications to our clients and just letters of advice and things like that. In addition, I'd say in terms of the practice areas, you can see where we're ranked in various practice areas on websites like Legal 500 and Chambers. I don't have them off the top of my head. But I know in finance, we have a really strong structured finance teams. In litigation, we have a really strong PI indemnity team. So there are different practice areas that we work in. We have different strengths, and those are ways in which we differ from our competitors as well. And I remember, for example, in real estate, we do sort of large, high-value transactions rather than sort of smaller, bitty ones, which other firms might focus on. So it definitely, you need to have a look at what kind of work you want to do and what kind of work we do and make sure that matches up when you're applying.
Yeah, thanks, Nina Hormus. I was, just going to add, I think from a trainee perspective, obviously the size of the cohort, we only take on 15. Some of the larger firms take on double, triple that. So it's less competitive amongst trainees. You're not fighting for qualification. We retain almost all of our trainees each year. So that's another aspect to think about. And obviously that means we also have smaller, more tight-knit teams that you work on. So that exposure to work as well. And I think also if you're looking at kind of US law firms, we're not one of them. It's not like it's the US kind of branch of Mayer Brown and then work gets fed from them to us. We have our own work on clients. We have a big kind of own work base. So I know that's another difference. So there's a couple of things you might want to consider and figure out what you want from a firm, because there are a lot of differences that impact that would impact your training contract in different ways. So Maya, you've asked, how should you prepare for your training contract while on the LPC? Is there anything you wish you had done differently? Nina, Hormus, do you want to pick this one up?
I guess really try and take in the information you're learning, especially if it's, you know, a module or an elective that is closely linked to what you're going to be doing in practice. So if you know you want to go into commercial law, obviously pay a lot of attention in criminal litigation. Don't just ignore it. But definitely when you're in like business law classes, you know, really take in what you're learning, because you're going to be looking at companies' house pages and kind of resolutions while you're in a transactional seat. So it's good to really understand them while you've got a lot of time around you to really learn. I mean, my half of my LPC was virtual, which, you know, I wish I hadn't done that, but that was out of my control. Just because I think while you are on the LPC, it's harder virtually. I think you still can do it. Just really try and make connections. You know, these are people who might not be going to the same firm as you, but, you know, they might become kind of people you go to for advice when they're at different firms. They might be in the same seat as you at a different firm. And it's really great to be able to talk to people about your experience and their experiences. So yeah, I think how I wish I'd done it differently is during the in-person, that was really easy to make those connections. But I wish when it had turned virtual and I was in new elective classes, I'd still tried to make kind of connections with other people on the LPC.
Great, thanks, Nina. To move on to Rosalind, you've asked, do you know who looks at and picks successful candidates from vacation scheme applications? Is it HR, partner, etc.? So I can definitely answer this for you. So if you've applied for one of our vacation schemes, you make it to assessment center. Just to quickly kind of go through the assessment center process. So you'll do a group exercise, what we call a fact find exercise, which is a one-to-one exercise with one of our associates. And then you'll do your interview, and the interview will be with a partner, and usually two partners, or sometimes a partner and a senior associate, or counsel. And then what happens is all of those different assessors, so the group exercise assessor, again, is usually associate and someone from graduate recruitment, like myself or my manager, and the associate from the fact find exercise, and the people that did your interview, partner or counsel, will all have a chat and go through how you performed in each of those parts of the assessment day, and that will inform the decision as to who we offer a vacation scheme place to. So that's how it works. So it's a group decision. I guess the final kind of thing will most likely come down to graduate recruitment. So myself and my manager, just because we would have seen how you've performed all the way up until that final stage, whereas, you know, the assessors on the assessment day wouldn't have that foresight, because we have a blind CV policy and so on and so forth. So they wouldn't know, oh, they did really well on the stage before this. They just see you for that specific interview or exercise. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, basically graduate recruitment, we have a big part in that. So we'll move on to Leah's question. You said you'd love to apply but don't have any legal experience outside of your degree. How do I demonstrate my passion outside of this? So I'll hand over to the trainees, just in the case that, I mean, I'm not sure if all of you had legal work experience, but if you didn't,
Yeah, I'm happy to comment.
thanks.
I had very minimal legal work experience. I think I did some work in an office in my local town, which was tiny, and I was always searching out opportunities within that type of environment, simply because none of my family were lawyers or solicitors, and so we didn't really have any contacts that you could go to a bigger firm. So any opportunity that I did have, I just took upon me to do a week, to do a couple of days. I'd email people in my town and just say, I'm so and so, I've got this law degree, or I'm studying for this degree. These are my interests. You practice in this. That's very easy to do. And I think that everyone should be doing that if you're struggling to get into things like open days or working with organizations like Aspiring Solicitors or Rare. If you're struggling to do that, then I'd definitely just contact smaller law firms. There's also other ways. If you're interested in writing articles, I wrote a few articles, not on corporate law or finance law, but it does express an interest in what you're doing. And if they are corporate finance, real estate, whatever it is based, then that can also be a really helpful start to gaining experience. So yeah, I definitely recommend approaching anyone and everyone. All they're going to say is no, and that's okay. I had so many no's. I actually applied to Mayor Brown the year before, or 2 years before I got the offer, and just got rejected. Like then that was that. So we all have so many no's, or we all have so many setbacks, or what feels like a setback, whereas actually it can often be a progressive step forward. So, but yeah, reach out to lots of small law firms is what I'd say.
Thanks, Kyle. I would just add, during COVID, because obviously in-person experience kind of wasn't a thing, a lot of firms started kind of virtual work experience programs, which pretty much anyone could do. So it's worth having a look for those. They're still around. We're launching one this year that you'll be able to do as well. But lots of firms do it. There was some that was specifically for that firm, or some run by an organization called Bright Network, that you could apply to. So there's lots of different kind of virtual work experience out there now that will obviously demonstrate your passion. Reading articles, blogs from different firms, that can show an interest. The fact that you can talk about, or some of the media consumed, like podcasts, etc., in your application would definitely demonstrate your passion, because not everyone does that. Pretty much every law firm releases regular blogs, articles, podcasts, videos, but most applicants don't don't look at them, don't read them. So that would definitely um, look great on your application form. And again, just adding on to kind of what Kyle said, open days. We ran an open day recently, and it was a really simple application. And pretty much everyone that applied, we let join the open day. So there's a lot of firms running them as well that would look into. Definitely also look at Legal Cheek, Law Careers Net. We have events with them. Other firms have events with them. There's always something going on that you could get involved in, that you could kind of stick in, maybe not the work experience section, but like the additional information section, or the section that allows you to talk about um, extracurricular activities and interests and stuff. You can stick it in there. That would really help as well. Hopefully that answers your question. So Oscar, you've asked, how did you provide a convincing explanation for why you wish to work in commercial law? So that's a great question, because pretty much every firm will ask you why commercial law. So I see what you've done there. So I'll hand over to the trainees to kind of um, give an idea as to what they said.
So from my experience of applying, I think I spent about 3 years applying for training contracts, got plenty of no's, as Cal was saying. It's, you've just got to get used to that, and you've got to just roll with it. And I think I looked back, once I got my Mayor Brown offer, I looked back at the earlier ones, the unsuccessful ones. And I think a common theme is I felt like I was trying to convince someone. I felt like I was trying really hard to convince somebody else that I wanted to be a commercial lawyer. And I actually had no idea for myself why. And then what I'd done in the next few years that actually give me my idea of why I wanted to be a commercial lawyer. So I went out and did some work experience in private client law, I did some immigration, I did some GDPR work, and then I did some commercial work as well. And I found that the part of the commercial transactions that I was working on was sort of general commercial and a bit of export finance as well for a sort of boutique firm. They were the bits that I really clicked with, that I enjoyed dealing with money more than I enjoyed dealing with sort of people's personal issues. And that, write that in a slightly more eloquent way and you've got your answer. And it's got to be the same for you. It can't be an answer that you pick off the internet or you get from a forum or that I tell you. I mean, feel free to write my words if you like, but it's not going to help you because it's not going to be why you want to be commercial. So that's the honest answer is you've got to figure that one out for yourself and got to make sure it's a good reason, because you're not just getting the training contract, you then have to actually be a commercial lawyer for at least 2 years, if not the rest of your career. So yeah, make sure you know as well.
Yeah, great answer, Holmes. Couldn't have said it better myself. I think, yeah, ultimately, really have a good think about it and have maybe 2 or 3 really strong reasons to kind of put in your answer to that question. So yeah, you do need to have thought that through, because it's very likely to come up at some point in the recruitment process for pretty much every firm you apply for. So Poppy, you've asked, coming from a non-law background, what advice can you give about gaining experience and standing out against law students? So I think we've kind of touched on this already, answering some of the other questions. I think firstly, don't see it as you competing with law students. It's not non-law versus law at all. We take on, like I said, we take on students, graduates from both. We don't. It's not something that we, look at. We want a diversity of trainees. So we want people that haven't come from a law background. So it doesn't hold you back or put you at a disadvantage at all. I think, as I said, just try and show you have interest in it. And as Nina said, join your university law society if you're still studying. Join organizations if you can, like aspiring solicitors or SEO, or go to Legal Cheek and All About Law and Law Careers and events. Show you have an interest in it. Like I said, go on the websites, read the articles, read the blogs, listen to a few podcasts, and if you can show that you've got a real interest in it, that's how you'll stand out. So hopefully that answers your question, Poppy. Nicholas, you've asked, what is the policy towards recruiting foreign applicants and what support is offered in terms of visa support? So I'll answer this question. So we do take on what we would call international trainees. We've had trainees join us from Singapore, Cyprus, Tokyo. We've got someone joining us from Tokyo. We've already had one join from Tokyo. All over the world outside of the UK. We do offer visa support. So within HR, we have a kind of global mobility manager that looks after this, and then we have the immigration team that is kind of a separate organization from Mayor Brown that we work with. We help you through the whole process, financially, but also literally each step we help you with, and you're not at a disadvantage again if you aren't from the UK and you're applying for a role with us. We've got someone joining us from France, I forgot. So yeah, all over the world. So don't worry about that, and please do apply, because we're well equipped to support you in that process. So Matthew, you've asked, I'm hoping to change my direction from a biological PhD to law. Is this possible via the training contract? I think I understand what you're asking here. I think you're basically asking if you, um, is I guess if you join us on the training contract, would we support you in that? And the answer is no, because obviously you would have joined us having done the SQE, which is all we need. So whether you do a biological PhD or a law PhD or degree, it doesn't matter, because you will have done the SQE before joining us. But you wouldn't start the training contract without having done that. And you also, during the training contract, you wouldn't be doing a qualification alongside that. So hopefully that answers your question, but please do feel free to clarify. So Valentina, you've asked, what would you say has been the biggest struggle the firm as a business has faced during your time training there, other than COVID? That's a great question. It's not one I don't think we've had all year, well, kind of all recruitment season since we've been doing these events. But trainees, I'll hand over to you if anyone can think of. Anything, because I guess the first answer would be COVID. But Nina, Hormus, Kyle, anything?
I can't speak for the business as a whole, because I think as trainees we're not quite exposed to that level, which of sort of the business's interest, which is kind of dealt with more at the even managing partners level. Even some of the partners wouldn't necessarily be involved with those particular discussions. But one thing that I have seen in some of my matters is that clients are becoming really cost conscious. We're dealing with one of the biggest FX litigation cases going on at the moment, and the client, which is a huge institutional bank, is being so tight on costs. If we have to do anything, we have to get an agreed fee arrangement in place, and then working within those fee arrangements can be really tight when you might want to just go and do a bit of research to get a bit of extra analysis, which might, in the end, might give better legal advice, but you just can't do it before getting client sign off. So negotiating your actual fees with the client is a challenge, and I think it's becoming increasingly so as a lot of the work also goes in-house. When I was at British Land, I saw that some of the work that had previously been given to Mayor Brown, the more simple real estate transaction bits, were actually being done in-house in the British Land team, and so that's billable work that we don't have anymore, simply because the client has decided that it's not worth the money. So we're going to have to find ways to either provide those services more cost efficiently or find other ways to get our billable hours back. I think that's something that's not unique to Mayor Brown. That's something that's across the industry.
Yeah, thanks, Hormus. Great answer. Hopefully that's answered your question, Valentina. So
Serena,
Ashley,
there's a really nice question by Caitlin Gowland as well. Of
do
20,
you want to pick that up?
20, yeah, it's what level of commercial awareness did you need as an applicant? For example, if researching how an M&A deal is structured, would you have to understand each step in detail or be able to read a balance sheet? It's a really good question, because commercial awareness and expressing commercial awareness goes beyond showing off and comes to the heart of what we do as trainees and what associates and partners do, which ultimately is feed the client with business advice. It's not generalized legal work, it's very specific to their needs. And in order to understand an individual client's needs, you have to understand their industry, who their key players are, what do they want from a particular transaction, or what is their ultimate objective with a litigious matter. Because not everyone wants to go to court, not everyone wants to, choose what hill they want to die on. So in order to understand that, you have to have a strong level of commercial awareness that I think you can do by reading the FT, by reading a book called Know the City by Christopher Stokes. It's very good. And there are lots of other books out there, like How to Read the Financial Papers, and other ones that you can read. But I don't think you need to be able to read a balance sheet in order to get a training contract at Mayor Brown, because I certainly couldn't when I got my offer. What I do think you need to have is to be able to speak relatively fluently on a wide range of relevant commercial issues and understand their context. And if you keep that in mind, rather than concentrating on profit loss accounts, you're more likely to have a better chance at getting the training contract. That's just my own view on it.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. I would say the exact same thing. You're not expected to come in with that knowledge. Obviously, like I said, we take non-law students, so hence why that's not a requirement at all. But definitely keep up with what's going on in the industry, and yeah, read Financial Times, The Economist, etc. So
Can I just add one little
yeah,
thing? And it's sort of specifically on the bit of if researching an M&A, how an M&A deal is structured. Yes, you should know how it's structured, but also think about what lawyers are doing in that M&A deal specifically. Because it's great for us to know about the finance side, but you should be trying to understand even more specifically, what a trainee might be doing in that M&A deal. And don't be afraid to reach out to someone on LinkedIn who's got the title finance trainee and say, hey, I'm a student, I'm trying to understand what you do in this transaction. What would you be doing? And more often than not, they will just take a moment to reply, because that's a really specific and really good question.
Yeah, thanks, Hormus. So we'll move on quickly to Ashley's question. You've asked, are law firm open days or virtual events considered as work experience in the application form? So I wouldn't put it in that work experience section. Like I said, I'd put it more in the additional information section, or if there's a cover letter. We don't have a cover letter anymore, but if one of the other firms you're applying for still have that, put it in there. But yeah, additional information, and that's where you can highlight your interests and things you've done outside of education and kind of real work, and that's where I'd put that. Dennis, you've asked, I'm on a 4-year degree program and most of the internships are for second year law students. Is there anything I can do as a first year undergraduate student? Yeah, so I think attending things like this, so virtual events, webinars like this, whether that be firm specific or legal cheek, law careers net ones that kind of happening all year round, especially during recruitment cycles, so in the autumn period, definitely attend events like that. I think there's also, like I touched on, the virtual work experience programs. Some of them are open to first year students. I think most of them, yeah, are open to first year students. At least the one that we'll be launching later this year will be, and attending open days. For example, our open day was open to students and graduates, regardless of the year they were in or the degree they were studying. So I'll quickly move on to Amir's question. You've asked, so you've done your LLB and LLM, but you've got a 2-2. Can you still make an application? The answer is yes. Please do still make an application. We take into account any mitigating circumstances as well. So you can kind of put some narrative in there around 2-2, but don't let it put you off. We have got trainees that have joined us that got a 2-2 in their undergraduate degree, so don't worry about it. And ultimately, that's because, like I said, you'll do the SQE before you join, so you have all the training and kind of knowledge that you need before joining. Ruel, you've asked, is it necessary to have done a vacation scheme to get a training contract? Quick answer on that, no. You don't have to do a vacation scheme to get a training contract with us. But obviously it does help, especially if you've done it at the firm you're applying for. But it's not a requirement for us, or kind of most firms, it's not a requirement at all. Leah, you've asked, what does a typical day at Mayor Brown look like? What time do you tend to leave the office? So I'll hand over to the trainees for this, but I think what time you leave the office is really dependent on practice area, but I'll hand over to the trainees.
I'm happy to speak, having done finance and then litigation, which are probably kind of the starkest contrast. So yeah, within finance, that could entail slightly longer days, and there were reasons for that. If you're on a massive international transaction and you've got local counsel coming online in jurisdictions like Australia, for example, it's really important that you'd kind of stay up for them to come online, kind of, at their 7-8 a.m, but that might be our like later evening. I would say it definitely wasn't the norm. That wasn't my everyday, and there was definitely not a feeling that as a trainee you should be online if there wasn't a reason for you to be online. And what I think I liked was that you might be working late, but the rest of your team is online with you. It wouldn't be that you just be left while everyone else went to bed. So you felt like the team was around you. And coupled with later nights in finance, I found the days started later anyway. So a lot of the time, I'm probably not supposed to out myself here, but I wouldn't log on till like 10:30, 11 in the morning, because nothing would happen kind of early in the morning. It would be kind of into the afternoon that things would start kind of heating up. And then I moved into litigation, which is very different. I'd say I normally start at 9, 9:30, and then usually will log off by kind of 6:30 most days. If there's a filing deadline or if there's a big disclosure exercise going on, and by disclosure exercise, I mean kind of a document review. So we've got X thousand documents to review in a certain time frame. I'll usually stay online a bit later, but it really won't be that late into the evening, and you know your hours are constantly being monitored, and you'll constantly be speaking to your supervisor, and they'll kind of step in and kind of offer advice if they think you're doing too longer hours. So that's been my experience. But I'd say there probably isn't a typical day in terms of hours. But your teams are very open to explaining to them if you've got kind of other commitments that you need to go to during the day or in the evening. They'll respect that.
Thanks, Nina. Carl, Holmes, anything to add? I know we've just gone past 3, so I know the trainees have to leave shortly. I can stay on for a little bit longer to answer some of the more graduate recruitment specific questions.
Nothing to answer on that one specifically,
Okay.
but like Kyle, I was just sort of reading through the other questions and picked out this one from Tekla, which I think is quite important. It might be applicable to quite a few people. He or she says, I'm a more mature applicant and a career changer as a former teacher. Do you normally have older applicants? How are older trainees viewed? So I know that in the cohorts around us and even in our cohort, there have been lots of career changes, lots of people who've done, almost had quite advanced careers before joining Mayor Brown. Cheryl, she's a mother of 2. I think she did the LPC with you, Nina. So there's a real broad range of people that come at Mayor Brown. And I think that's one of the things that really set the firm apart for me, actually. And just compared to other firms that I applied to or went to open days for, is that there isn't like a particular cookie cutter Mayor Brown lawyer. The idea is you come here and you bring your life experiences and the varied skills that you've learned there to come and work at Mayor Brown and apply them in a different context. It doesn't have to be that you're 22, got the training contracts in your second year of an LLB and come straight fresh in. And honestly, like I wouldn't call myself a mature applicant at all, but like my experiences outside Mayor Brown and before Mayor Brown all really helped me hit the ground running at Mayor Brown. So I'm sure your career as a teacher would, do the exact same for you.
Yeah, thanks, Holmes. You rightly said we do have trainees that have joined us that have had whole other careers for multiple years before joining us. So it won't hold you back at all, and actually puts you in a position where you have a lot to talk about and you have a lot of skills that you've developed that we look for in a training solicitor. So it can definitely work to your advantage. So yeah, no disadvantages there at all. So thanks for that question. So I think the next question was from Ruel, which was, as a first year LLB undergraduate, could you explain what I can do now to increase my chances of getting a training contract? So I think that's quite a good question to hand over to the trainees, and maybe the last one to kind of end on before they leave. If you can stay on, then please feel free. But I think, yeah, what did you do, or what do you wish you would have done kind of when you're in your first year or early on in your degree to kind of help you with the training contract or the application process for it?
So yeah, I'm happy to stay on a bit longer, Serena. I think in your first year, don't stress too much about not getting onto open days or not getting onto vacation schemes if some firms do open those for first year students. Kind of spend your time really digesting the firms that are out there. I have no idea how many firms are based in the UK, but I imagine there are just hundreds. And I know, I don't know if you still get them in hard copy, but Lex 100 used to have this guide where each page was a different law firm. And I remember just sitting down and kind of going through, tabbing pages, because there'll be so many firms you just haven't heard of because they might take on a small number of trainees or not engage with kind of big like law fairs that Legal Cheat put on, and just really sit down and digest what they advertise to the world as being what kind of law they do, and just check whether there are other firms that you're really interested in, and maybe start like a Word document, or if you want to do a handwritten notebook just about all these different firms, why you'd want to join them, what they've said each year in their marketing materials about their clients, the kind of work they do, and just start really getting this really broad view on the law firms that are out there.
Yeah, thanks, Nina. I think, yeah, that's exactly what you should do. I think first year, don't get too bogged down in things, but look, just trying to get an understanding of, yeah, what's out there and the different opportunities, and what the recruitment process is like, what the different training contract and vacation schemes are like, because they're not all the same. Can be quite different dependent on firm. Come to events like this, and gain as much information as you can. So when you get to the point where you're applying, you have all the knowledge you need, and you have great answers for, why law, why this specific firm, which, like I said, always come up in the application process. So thank you for that question.
I have to go now, but thanks very much, everyone, for your time. And good luck. If you've got any questions, just message me on LinkedIn. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, I'm sure the trainees are happy for you to connect with them on LinkedIn. Holmes, do you have to leave now as well?
Yeah, I think I'll need to head off. I've got a few bits and pieces. Like I said, good luck, and yeah, feel free to add me on LinkedIn and ask any questions you've had. Right.
Thanks,
See you guys
Holmes.
later. Bye.
Bye. So I'll stay on until 1:15. Feel free to leave before that. But I just want to answer as many questions as we can. And you can also contact us via email. So it's grecruitment@maybrown.com. So if you don't have LinkedIn, or you don't want to connect on there, you can also email us. So grecruitment@maybrown.com, and we'll pick them up. If there's a specific training you want to ask to, I can send it on. They'll answer, etc. So Isabella, you asked, how would you recommend preparing for an interview as a non-law student applying for a VAC scheme? Great question. Obviously, the interview is arguably the most important kind of part of the application process. I think, again, don't think of it too much as a non-law student. I don't think law students have a advantage at all, especially not at interview stage, because ultimately you're talking about yourself and your own passions, interests, experience, etc. So with regards to preparation, treat it as you would any interview. I think kind of treat it as a two-way conversation. Keep that in mind. So at the end, when they ask, "Oh, do you have any questions?" Make sure you have some questions. It will help if you've done your research, not just on the firm, but if you have the names of the interviewers beforehand, so you can see what practice area they work in. You can ask something around that, but think of some interesting um, questions that you can ask that you know will help you also make the decision about, oh, is this firm for me. um Definitely think about the main questions, as I would say, that most firms work. So that's why commercial law, why this specific firm. So in this example, why do you want to join Mayer Brown? um and also kind of, yeah, your motivations for applying um for the training contract or vacation scheme. So I think that's really important to have some solid reasons. I also think a lot of applicants, they don't go into enough detail in their answers. So using something like the STAR technique will help you kind of circumvent that. So the STAR technique stands for situation, task, action, result, and that helps you break down your answers. Um, and it allows you to go into enough detail, because you don't want just brief generic answers. You want to go into detail. You always want to provide evidence and examples to back something up. So if you're talking about having a specific skill, um, let's say time management, you want an example to show where you've shown that you have good time management skills. Or as Thomas was saying earlier, if you're talking about commercial awareness and answering a question around that, you want a specific article or blog or podcast or something that you've listened to that you can talk about, that links in with that. Always think, oh, I need evidence. I need evidence when you're answering questions. I could go on. Obviously, this is a kind of graduate question. Nina, I don't know if you have anything to add. Kind of, how did you prepare, other than, I guess, like researching the firm?
Yeah, I guess research the firm, what you said, kind of have your bank of answers to the questions that are most likely to come up. Obviously, Mayor Brown's CV blind, so this won't be applicable to the firm. But if you're applying at other firms that have your application in front of them, make sure you remember what you've written. It could be months after you've made that application, so make sure you remind yourself. And going back in time even further, when you do the application, make sure you don't write about anything that you really don't understand. Or if you do, make sure you understand it by the time you get to interview, because that's always what's going to happen. They'll ask you about the one thing that you kind of put in thinking you'd know about it at the time. So definitely don't kind of shoot yourself in the foot with that.
Yeah, great advice there, Nina. Hopefully that answers your question. Like I said, I could go on about what you could do and what a lot of candidates miss, but I won't. But there's a lot of good resources, again, on Law Careers Net, I would say, for kind of how to prepare for these types of interviews. Literally quite specific, detailed articles they've written on these types of things. So we'd have a look at those. Joe, you've asked, what has been one aspect of your training contract that has exceeded your expectations before starting at May Brown? So Nina, I'll hand over to you.
I would just say kind of the people, which I know is a very easy answer for me to say. I obviously came in thinking, having done a VAC scheme, that everyone was going to be really friendly and it would be a very supportive and collegiate atmosphere, but it's massively exceeded my expectations. I came in thinking, you know, that there'd be a hierarchy and I wouldn't have much time with partners. You know, anything I did would go through an associate. But so often I'll just get an email directly from a partner asking me to do something, who will then give me feedback on whatever I do. So I'd say, yeah, it's the kind of collegiate atmosphere and the inclusivity and the open door policy that has just massively exceeded my expectations.
Thanks, Nina. So I think we'll end now. I'll quickly answer Valentina's question just because it's a really short answer. So you've asked, can you confirm whether we recruit on a rolling basis? Yes, we do recruit on a rolling basis. So the earlier you send in your application, the more likely you are to progress to the final stages, because once we filled up our assessment centres, that's it. It doesn't matter that you applied. We'll just send you an email saying, sorry, they're all full, thanks for your application type thing. So yeah, do get your application in ASAP, especially as our deadline is the 31st of January for both our training contract and vacation schemes. But I'd just like to thank everyone for coming along. Thank you again to all of our trainees, Nina, Holmes, Kyle and Kirsty. As they've all said, if you have any further questions, connect with them on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can also email us at grecruitment@maybrown. We do hope you found the webinar really useful, and best of luck with all your applications that you have coming up in the future. Thank you.